Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. On the last segment, I ended by playing a song which is a march that I wrote. And I'm going to play it again because you probably don't remember it. And then I want to show you some new fingerings that you're learning. I've been showing you fingerings like B, A, G, F, E, D. But I want you to learn C and D and also C sharp, D, and E. And they're just a progression upward, but they are a little bit hard to do. So let me play this song once again, and if you can follow along here, and see if you can follow along what I'm playing, because it's going to be, you need to learn how to read music. You need to learn how to look at music and see where a person is if they're playing it, so you can follow along with them. Because if you ever sing or play or do a solo, you need to read music for your own instrument to play. So let me play this once again. I won't go too fast with it, so it'll be easier for you to follow. Now let me kind of dissect it for you before we go any further. That's the whole thing. You start off treble clef, because this is what we're playing in. You have two sharps. Now this is a C sharp and an F sharp. That puts the song in the key of D. D has two sharps. It's 4/4 time. A lot of times marches are written in 2/2 or C with a slash in it, which is called cut time. But I'm doing the 4/4 because it's at what I'm trying to teach. It's just easier to teach it. So then you start, and I did put in some of the notes here. A, F sharp, that's in the key signature, A, and then you get to that B is held over, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It's if it was 5 notes instead of 4. That's all a slur, and then you go back to the A sharp, A, F sharp, A, and then you get to the C. The C is sharp too, because that's also in the key signature, and you hold it right here. And then you go back to the normal notes here. Then you have C sharp, D, B, F sharp, A, G, E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. There's a hold here. Now the notes that are going to be different that I haven't usually put in, the C's are sharped, and then you will get a D right here, which I haven't really shown you too much how to do. So there are various notes. And then the accidentals, B, B, B flat, and then B natural again. This B flat becomes an accidental because it's not in the key signature. And the B natural, it just makes it natural like these two, but it's also considered to be an accidental because it has to be marked a sharp or a flat, and it's not in the key signature. Then you have your D's, C sharp B, D, B, A, and then you have a G sharp, which is an accidental, and so you go through the whole thing. This is slurred, and then when you get down here, you play, this is a half note, this is a quarter note, and it's got a little dot, which means a shortened note. It would be a staccato note, but it's also called a stinger. It's called a stinger because it's the very last note in the song, and when you have a short note, like a staccato, at the very end of the song, and it's usually done with marches, then it is a stinger. Now, I've been teaching you some fingerings, B, A, G, F, E, D, starting, and you can watch me as I do it here because you'd be playing it. Here's B, A, G, F, or if it's a Baroque instrument, you also add that finger, but let's assume for now it's not. That would be an F, E, D. Well, what if you want to go up higher? Here's your B, B, A, G. So let's start with a B. If you want to play a C, put the second finger down, lift that first finger up, and you notice that the tone hole is closed on both of them. So far, the tone hole in the back, or the thumb hole, is always closed in everything we've played so far, but that's going to change. If you want a C sharp, which is a half step above that C, you put the index finger down and take the thumb off so it's not in the back, and that's your C sharp. Then if you want a D, lift this finger up, so the only finger you have down playing is that middle finger. That's a little bit hard to get used to, so I'm drawing it out here. And so I'll show you. Here's your C right here. When you go from that B, which is right here, you go to that C, which you have your middle finger down, and that C, of course, you still have your tone hole down in the back. And then if you want the C sharp, lift the tone hole in the back, take the thumb off the tone hole so it's not there, and take these two fingers, there's your C sharp. If you want your D, the tone hole in the back of the thumb hole is open, and the index or the middle finger is the only one down. You don't have anything below that G even showing up, and then you get your D. Then if you want to go to an E, you start half-holing the thumb hole in the back. So let me show you that more carefully. Here's my C right here. Well, let me start at G. When I show you before, it's B-A-G, bag. So here's my G, and I'm going up instead of down. So G, A, B, then C, and notice the thumb hole is still covered. And let's do just E instead of C sharp. It'll be easier. G, A, B, C, lift that thumb off, and then you get a D. So you have your D. Now what if you want to go E, which is one higher? You put all your fingers down just like for a regular E, but you take the thumb hole in the back and you half hole. You draw it down but not all the way. So you have... Now to play that, I don't have it off. I just have it down so it's not fully covered. I take my thumb like this, and then I just pull it down a little bit. And when I pull it down a little bit, that automatically bounces that E up to a higher register. And the same thing for the F, and the same thing for the G, and the same thing for A. When you get to B, there's a different fingering involved, so I'm not going to go into that now. B and C have different fingering. So if I take it, and I'm in the higher register, not the lower register, your C, D, your D, notice the thumb, I got it wiggling around, it's not on the tone hole, so how do I balance it? Well, I've got my mouth to balance it. Look, no fingers practically. But the thumb in the back is holding on. There's no set place to put it, but it does support it. Your lower right hand, you can hold it like that. You can that's not going to affect the tone if you hold it like that to support it, plus your thumb and your mouth, that supports it. So and if I wanted to do F, and then you do it with a half hold when you need to do it. So it's a little bit like the other instruments, because in the saxophones and the clarinets, you have register keys or octave keys. Now with the saxophone, you have one octave key, it bounces you up. With the clarinet, you don't get an octave. You actually get an octave plus 5 notes. But so it's called a register key, not just an octave key. With the recorders, if you take your thumb and any note you play, pull it down a little so you can see that there is part of the whole showing and part of the whole covered. For a lot of notes, it won't work with all of them. For a lot of notes, it will just take and put you up. I can do it with a low D, but that's not the appropriate way to play a high D. Going from low to high, you're supposed to have all these notes covered. This is the D. You don't have the bottom one covered, but you have these covered. And then when you go to the E, you take everything off, including the thumb. That's the appropriate way to play a D. So there are all kinds of little fingerings that you need to know. So I've shown some of this. Let me show you this, because I'm going to go through the whole scale with this. It probably, if not this segment, I will part of it, but I may have to consider finishing it next segment. Here is your B, and if you look at the front of the recorder, that's the first note down, and the thumb hole is closed. So this is it, if you want to look at where, this is it. Now, I'm going to go to the, I'm going to go to the C, which is going to be right here. Notice that hole is not covered. The thumb hole is, but I've switched from the B and lifted up that one finger that I mentioned before and put this finger down. B, C, B, C. That becomes a C. Now, I want to do something higher, like I want to do the C sharp. At this point at the C sharp, you do not have the hole covered in the back. You take that right off, you pull it down and keep it uncovered, and use these two keys in the front. So here it goes from the B. There's your C sharp. And that's what the C sharp is. No covering, and these top two, and that's your C sharp, the right way. Sometimes I use alternate fingerings like what the saxophone and flute would play, because I do both instruments. Then if I want to lift that top finger and have only the middle one down, then, and nothing over the tone hole in the back, that becomes your D. So, now, if I have that D, the next note up is going to be an E. I'm going to, for that E, put all the fingers down except for the lowest ones, so it'll be regular D. So this is the E. To get to bounce up to an octave, I half hold the back. I half hold the back, and that's shown right here, where I have half of it covered and half of it not covered. Okay, so and then when you get to the higher notes, you just do that. You just keep going with a half holding, and when you get to the high B, of course, the fingerings start changing. So let me go from a G, A, B, C, C sharp, and D, and then E, and then F, G, So that's the way that you do it. Now, you would need to have exercises written out for you to do this. And I can always do that. I can go and write out an exercise and show you on television how to play it. And in a sense, I've already done that. But if you needed to practice that to really get it so that it's smooth, you need to practice something so it gets smooth. It can get a little confusing. It can get a little tricky. The higher notes are sometimes hard to reach. If I'm going to take a person out, if I'm going to check an instrument to see if it's a good instrument, it's the lower notes I'm going to pay more attention to, because in many of the melody instruments, for example, the flute, the regular flute, sometimes the recorders, the lowest notes are the hardest notes to get because you barely need air to do it, and you tend to overblow, and then you get too much loudness and it starts to squeal, or it doesn't come in, or your fingers don't cover it right. If you're going to do that low C, you have to make sure that everything is covered or you're not going to get it. So and a lot of times people will say that parents that I've taught their children, they'll say, would you pick out a flute for us? We want to get our child a flute, because they're using a rental instrument or an instrument that they've borrowed. I will go ahead and go into a music store, and this usually they're very cooperative, and say, I have a student that wants to buy a flute here, but I need to check and see which would be the best for them. And they'll usually let me play every single flute that they have on sale within the price range that the parent is willing to pay. And one of the things I always do is check for those low notes. How hard is it to get those low notes? If the low notes come in easily, it's usually a very good flute, because a lot of times on instruments, the low notes are the hardest to get, and it really is hard to get them. So if you find an instrument that can get a low note easily, then it's usually a pretty good instrument. Of course, I also have to check for the pitch, for the tonal qualities, whether it's in pitch with itself, how loud and how soft it gets, the dynamics, if it's easy to do that. So there's a lot to check if you check an instrument, but one of the things is just to check the low notes and see if they come in clearly. So let me, I'm going to play that song again, if I can find it. And it might be easier for you to follow along this time, because you're going to see the C sharp and the D's and the other accidentals that I have. They're more than what I've taught you before. And I might end up by using an alternate fingering, don't even consider that, but kind of watch and see if you can follow along as I play this once again. It is a march. It's written in 4/4 time, although normally a march would be written in 2/2 time, but it doesn't matter. I can do that. I can do anything I want because I wrote it. So anyway, here we go. Kind of watch the music and see if you can follow. Now you can see just adding 2 or 3 more notes to what you had before increases greatly the amount of music that you can play. And you can play a lot of music. Even just knowing the basic notes, the B, A, G, F, E, D, you can play a lot of music just with those notes, because there's 6 notes and an octave just has 8 notes. And the last note usually is a repetition of the first note. So you can play a lot, but you add 2 or 3 notes, you add add a sharp and a flat. You get so you know how to play those. You can add greatly to the amount of music that you're playing. Now, what I'm planning to do next time, I can't do it now, I don't have time. I want to go over with you with graphs and diagrams the fingerings from B, A, G, F, E, D, adding the C, and then go in the opposite direction from C all the way up to where you'd normally be playing, from low C on up to high C. So we'll be doing that next time, and so I'll close it here. Please join me next time.